second I steal costs me a day of my life. And right now, looking at you across this table, I need to tell you I only have 3 weeks left to live. You think I'm being dramatic. I could see it in your eyes. That familiar look you get when you think I'm spinning one of my elaborate stories. But this isn't fiction, and the reason I look older than I should, the reason my hair started going gray at 25, the reason I sometimes stare at clocks like that, counting down to my execution, it all comes back to this curse I carry. Let me start with the first time it happened. I was 17, standing in the middle of the street, watching a truck barrel toward Mrs. Henderson from next door. She had dropped her groceries and was scrambling to collect them, completely oblivious to the danger. Time moved like thick honey around me as panic flooded my system. And then everything just stopped. Not slowed down. Stopped. The truck hung suspended 3 feet from where Mrs. Henderson knelt, frozen in time like a photograph. Her face was turned toward me, expression caught between confusion and fear. Even the falling apple from her torn grocery bag hung motionless in midair. I could move. I was the only thing in the entire world that could move. I pulled Mrs. Henderson to safety, my hands shaking as I dragged her elderly frame to the sidewalk. Then I stepped back and somehow, instinctively, released my grip on time. Everything resumed. The truck roared past the empty space where she had been kneeling. The apple completed its fall to the asphalt. Mrs. Henderson looked around confused, wondering how she had gotten to the sidewalk. She thanked me for helping with her groceries, never knowing I had just saved her life. But that night, something was wrong with me. I felt older, tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. When I looked in the mirror the next morning, there were tiny lines around my eyes that hadn't been there before. I told myself it was stress, trauma from almost witnessing a death. I was naive then. I had no idea what I had just awakened. The second time happened 3 months later. A fire at the downtown library where I worked part-time. I saw you there, yes. You, though you don't remember this part, were trapped behind a wall of flames, calling for help. Everyone else had evacuated, but you had gone back for something, and now the exit was blocked. I didn't hesitate. Time stopped again, and I walked through the frozen flames like they were painted on glass. I carried you out, your unconscious body light in my arms, depositing you safely on the lawn before releasing time's hold. When the firefighters found you, they called it a miracle. You had somehow made it out despite the impossible circumstances. You spent weeks wondering how you had escaped, the memory hazy and dreamlike. But I aged another day, maybe 2. The lines around my eyes deepened. I noticed my first gray hair. That's when I started to understand the trade. Every second, I held time frozen. I paid for it with 24 hours of my natural lifespan. The universe doesn't give anything for free, especially not the power to cheat death itself. I was borrowing time, and like any loan, it came with interest. You want to know why I became obsessed with helping people? Why I always seem to be in the right place at the right time when accidents happen? It's because I can't help myself. When I see someone in danger, when I witness a moment where time itself needs to be cheated to save a life, I make the trade. The car accident on 5th Street, where I pulled the 3 people from the wreckage before it exploded. That cost me a week. The apartment fire, where I evacuated an entire floor of resident, 2 weeks. The subway incident where the brakes failed and I had to physically redirect the train by moving the track. I switched in frozen time. That one aged me a full month. I've saved 47 lives in the past 8 years. I know, because I keep count. I write down every person, every incident, every trade I make. 47 people are alive. alive today because I was willing to sacrifice my tomorrows for their todays. But here's what you don't know yet. What I've been building up the courage to tell you. Remember the night we met? Not at the library fire, but really met. The coffee shop on Maple Street 6 months ago. You were reading that book about quantum physics, and I sat down at the next table because something about you fascinated me. You thought it was coincidence that I happened to be there, but I had been watching you for years, not in a creepy way, but because you were the first person I ever saved, and I couldn't stop wondering about the life I had preserved, what you would do with it, how you would choose to spend the time I had given you. That night at the coffee shop, you started choking on your drink. Just a small thing, a piece of ice lodged wrong, but I saw the panic in your eyes. I saw you turning blue, saw other customers too slow to react, too shocked to help effectively. I stopped time again in that frozen moment. I held you against me and dislodged the ice from your throat. My hands trembled as I worked, not from difficulty, but from the weight of what I was doing. I wasn't saving a stranger this time. I was saving someone who had become precious to me. Someone whose laugh I had fallen in love with from across crowded rooms. When time resumed, you coughed, gasped, and looked around confused. I pretended I had just noticed your distress and asked if you were okay. You thanked me. We started talking, and somehow that conversation led to coffee dates, long walks, and eventually to love. But that night, saving you cost me 3 days. 3 days I traded gladly because I couldn't bear the thought of a world without your laugh in it. Since then, I've saved you 4 more times. The morning you almost stepped into traffic while texting, I pulled you back in frozen time, then pretended to bump into you accidentally. Cost me 6 hours. That the night you got food poisoning and stopped breathing in your sleep. I spent 20 minutes in stop time performing CPR until your rhythm stabilized. You woke up feeling mysteriously better. It cost me 2 weeks. The afternoon, at the construction site, when that beam came loose above your head, I moved you 3 feet to the left while time stood still. You never even knew you were in danger. Cost me 4 days. And last month, you were driving home in that storm, and your car started skidding toward the guardrail on the bridge. I stopped time and physically turned your steering wheel, correcting your trajectory. You thought you had amazing reflexes. Cost me 10 days. Each time, I told myself it was worth it. Each time, I looked in the mirror afterward and accepted the new lines on my face, the gray spreading through my hair, the weariness that seemed to settle deeper into my bones. But now, I need you to understand something. Yesterday, when we were walking through the park, and you started to tell me about your job interview, your phone rang. Your sister, calling about your nephew. He had been in an accident, was in critical condition at the hospital. I saw the devastation on your face. I watched you crumble as she gave you the details. 8-year-old Tommy, hit by a drunk driver, bleeding out in the emergency room with minutes to live. You begged me to drive you to the hospital, but I knew we would never make it in time. The traffic, the distance, the precious minutes ticking away. Tommy would be gone before we arrived. So I made the biggest trade of my life. I stopped time and ran to the hospital. 47 minutes of frozen time while I located Tommy, while I applied pressure to his wounds, while I moved him to a better position for the surgeons, while I arranged every possible advantage for his survival. I turned his head so his airway would be clear, positioned the medical instruments where the doctors would find them immediately, even guided the surgeon's hands in that frozen moment so the first incision would be perfect. When I finally released time, Tommy's surgery was a miraculous success. The doctors called it impossible, the way everything aligned perfectly. towards survival. Your nephew lived, and you hugged me afterward, tears streaming down your face, thanking me for getting you to the hospital so quickly. But 47 minutes of stop time cost me 47 days of life. I aged more than a month in a single afternoon. My hair went completely gray. Lines appeared on my face, like a map of every sacrifice I've made. When you asked why I looked so tired, I blamed it on stress from the hospital. The truth is, I have 3 weeks left, maybe less. Calculation is imprecise, because I don't know exactly how long I was supposed to live originally. But based on the aging patterns, based on how I feel in my bones, based on the way my reflection looks more like my father's each day, I know my time is almost up. And here's the part that's going to break your heart. I would do it all again. Every trade, every stolen second, every day of my life, I've paid to keep the people I love. Save, I regret. None of it. Tommy is going to grow up now. He's going to have birthdays and graduations and maybe children of his own. You're going to have your nephew's laughter in your life for decades, because I was willing to trade my weeks for his years. But I need you to know this story, because when I'm gone, when my borrowed time finally runs out, I want you to understand why. I want you to know that love isn't just about the time we spend together. Sometimes it's about the time we're willing to sacrifice for each other. You've been loved by someone who could manipulate time itself, and I used that power not to give us more moments together, but to ensure you would have moments at all. Every second you've lived since that first day I saved you has been a gift we both paid for. I know you're going to ask if there's another way I could stop using the power, if we could somehow undo the trades I've made. But time doesn't work backward, not even for someone like me. The debts are collected, the aging is irreversible, and the universe keeps its books balanced. What I can give you is this: the knowledge that you are so deeply loved that someone was willing to trade their entire future to protect yours, and the promise that in my remaining weeks, I won't waste time on regrets or fear. I'm going to spend every remaining day loving you as completely as I can, because that's what makes all the trades worth it. Not the power to stop time, but the choice to spend it on what matters most. The clock is ticking for all of us. I just happen to know exactly how much time I have left.